Maintenant, la séance.
Hello. I call this meeting to order. I would like to recognize that this meeting is taking place on the unceded traditional territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. Welcome to the meeting. Meeting number 69 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Canadian Heritage.
Meeting, and it's taking place pursuant to the House Order of June the 23rd, 2022. And while public health authorities and the Board of Internal Economy no longer require mask wearing indoors or on the precinct, masks and respirators are excellent tools to prevent the spread of COVID and other respiratory diseases. And of course, the World Health Organization say we are still in a COVID pandemic. Now, I want to take this opportunity to remind all participants of this meeting that screenshots or taking photos are not allowed, and the proceedings will make available everything via the House of Commons website. So if you want to know, you can go on there to find out about it. Pursuant to Standing Order 1082 and the motion adopted by the committee on Tuesday, February the 28th, 2023, the committee is meeting to begin its study of the activities of Google in reaction to Bill C-18. Today, we have witnesses from Google Canada, and they are Sabrina Jeremiah, Vice President and Country Manager, who is here by video conference. We have Jason Key, Public Policy Manager, who is also on by video conference. And so we will begin with the opening remarks from Google, and you have 5 minutes to make your remarks. That means not each, but for Google, so you can decide how you're going to do that. And I will give you a 30-second shout out when you have 30 seconds left so that you can wrap up. Thank you very much. Please begin, Google, for 5 minutes.
Good morning. My name is Sabrina Jeremiah, and I'm joined today by Jason Key, a subject matter expert on search, news, and ads. This committee's work is important, and we have made it a priority to be here to answer your questions. Google has been in Canada for over 20 years, and we are proud of the many ways that we support and partner with Canadian newsrooms. Last year, we linked to Canadian news publishers over 3.6 billion times, helping them make money with ads and subscriptions. This free traffic drove an estimated $250 million in value to publishers. Through Google News Showcase, we've signed agreements that support over 150 Canadian publications, paying for curated content and access to articles that would have otherwise been behind paywalls. And the Google News Initiative provides tools, trainings, and funding to help Canadian news organizations innovate and build stronger, more sustainable business models in the digital age. We have been transparent about our concerns with Bill C-18. We have worked constructively with parliamentarians and offered reasonable and balanced solutions. Unfortunately, C-18 has some very serious problems. C-18 puts a price on free links to web pages, setting a dangerous precedent that threatens the foundation of the open web and the free flow of information, and incentivizes clickbait content over quality journalism. C-18 is intended to encourage voluntary agreements with news publishers, but the exemption and eligibility criteria have shifted so significantly that it would require subsidies to media companies, even if they don't produce news, are not online, and we do not link to their content. There is no clearly defined commitment to a code of ethics for eligibility in the bill, which threatens the standard of journalism in Canada. Unreasonable timelines and unfair arbitration provisions would ensure that any reasonable offer from platforms would be rejected, creating a framework for bad faith bargaining. C-18 would subsidize large legacy organizations and broadcasters and could hurt emerging and innovative players that are providing quality local news in communities across Canada. C-18 is no longer about supporting journalism. Under C-18, platforms would be subject to an uncapped financial liability merely for providing free links to the news that Canadians are searching for. Canadians should be concerned about the potential negative impacts on how they find and share news online. As the bill has worsened each step of the process, we've had to consider what product changes it may require, and potential product changes need to be tested. My colleague, Jason Key, will now share more about the tests.
Companies frequently use hypothesis-driven tests, also known as A/B testing, on a small percentage of real users to collect data about new features or changes before deciding whether to launch them at scale. Google runs over 11,500 tests each year to assess potential changes to search, and only a small fraction of these end up launching. The news tests in Canada were designed to assess potential impacts of C18 on how news is linked to in certain products. They affect less than 4% of Canadian users. C18 would radically change the legal framework under which we provide free links to news for Canadians. The bill is a moving target, and we don't know if we will continue to be able to link to news as we do today. So we are testing a range of possible responses. Specifically, due to the vagueness and uncertainty surrounding C18, we are testing the impact of featuring varying amounts of links to news in our search results based on the scope of the bill. I want to underline, these are just tests. No decisions have been made about product changes. We are simply doing our due diligence in the most responsible way possible. Canadians can still access news sites at any time in a variety of ways, as they always do, including directly through their web browser, dedicated apps, social media, or other means. We want to include news in our products. However, C18 puts a price on free links to news sites, provides no clarity or certainty as to what that price might be, and requires payment to an extremely broad range of outlets and organizations, even if they don't produce news. This creates maximum uncertainty, disincentivizes voluntary agreements, and moves us further from the shared goal of supporting news in Canada. We remain committed to working constructively with the government on reasonable and balanced solutions that would fix Bill C18 and contribute to a healthy, innovative, and diverse news ecosystem for the digital age. We welcome your questions.
That was excellent. You had 4 seconds left to go. Thank you. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go into the question and answer segment. And the first round of questions is a 6-minute round. And that includes questions and answers. So again, I urge everyone to be as succinct in your questions and your answers as possible. And so we begin with the Conservatives for 6 minutes. Marilyn Gladue. Marilyn, you have 6 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the witnesses for being here today. You've concisely described the concerns you have with C18. Did you make these concerns known to either the Minister of Heritage or perhaps government members on this committee?
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. And I do want to start that we do share the goal of promoting a healthy news ecosystem for the digital age that's innovative and diverse. And we have been transparent and collaborative throughout the process. We've offered different types of solutions that could perhaps get to this objective in different ways. And throughout the process, as the eligibility has broadened, as many of the provisions have changed, we have made our input and our feedback very clear. And I can pass to Jason for more input on that.
Thank you. And yes, we have engaged extensively with the Minister's office and a number of others with respect to our key concerns. As Sabrina indicated, we've been actually quite transparent and certainly in our view have offered a range of potential solutions to find a reasonable solve for some of these concerns that would actually maintain the objective of the bill.
In fact, you suggested amendments that would address your concerns to the government. Did the government bring any of those amendments forward?
No, during at least the course of the legislative review period of the bill, that none of the amendments that we had proposed to resolve our core concerns, again, predominantly around the making available of news being very broad, including linking that with respect to concerns about the eligibility criteria and the application of codes of ethics, et cetera, were raised during the course of the committee hearings.
Yes, indeed. The Conservatives brought some of the amendments forward because we agreed with some of the concerns about putting a price on links and some of the provisions that might cause misinformation or clickbait to be more prominent on the web. Now, I warned the committee at the time that in other jurisdictions, some of the larger streamers have taken actions to block content. We saw that in Australia with Meta, and there have been several other jurisdictions. Has Google ever blocked content in other jurisdictions?
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. I just want to make it clear that news is available. If you think about how you access news today, this morning on the way to work, you probably watched some TV, listened to a radio, you went to your app, you visited a social media site, and so on. News is available, and it is available through browsers, and including the Google browser, et cetera. In terms of the differences between this test, and I want to iterate again, this is a test. This is not a product decision. Versus Australia, my colleague Jason is an expert in search, ad, and news, and I'd like to pass to him.
Thank you. And yes, so as Sabrina indicated, this is important to constantly reiterate. This is just a test. There has been no decision made with respect to the outcome of the test. We are literally in a process of trying to gather information to ascertain what the potential impacts of C18 would be. We routinely conduct these kinds of tests. We make, again, 11,500 tests per year on search. Not surprisingly, some of these kinds of tests do have an impact on news. Many of them are actually intended to actually elevate authoritative content, which would include news content. And so we have conducted these kinds of tests in a variety of jurisdictions. Again, it's normal course for us to conduct these kinds of tests, especially if there's also legislation being introduced into a marketplace, which may have an impact on our products.
Yeah, absolutely. And I certainly share your concerns with the bill. And I have been saying all along that it's not going to help small and local media stations in Canada, because even the Parliamentary Budget Officer says that CBC and Rogers and Bell Media will make off with 75% of the money should this go forward. And so the alternate suggested was that organizations would provide funding for small and local media outlets as a group fund that they could sort out amongst themselves. Now, I understand that Google has offered to do some sort of funding in Taiwan. Could you tell me how that came about and describe how that works?
Certainly, I'll be happy to. This is actually a new news innovation fund that we launched in collaboration and a partnership with the Taiwanese government. It was essentially a product of extensive engagement and conversations with respect to the government, who also, like the Canadian government, was looking to see further investment from Google and other similar platforms with respect to the news industry. It was specifically also focused on news innovation. We wanted to ensure that various news publishers were properly transitioning to the digital age and actually were building sustainable business models to ensure that they could actually continue to survive. So we actually engaged in extensive conversations, worked with the Taiwanese government on building this, and then essentially there is an independent third party called the Taiwanese Digital Prosperity Organization, I believe it is, that is essentially going to administer the fund, and we're basically Google and other platforms will contribute into that fund, and then this independent agency will then administer those funds.
And if the Canadian government was willing to consider a similar type of arrangement, would Google be willing to have those discussions?
30 seconds, Ms. Ledoux.
Absolutely. Again, this is actually an innovative model that we welcome, that we actually encourage other jurisdictions to consider and adopt. We have consistently supported the concept of a fund, certainly throughout the Bill C-18 process. In our view, it is a way of resolving some of the core issues that C-18 presents in terms of its structure, but still ensures that large platforms like Google are contributing into a fund that is supporting the news ecosystem, and also ensures that that money is being focused on developing sustainable business models, and also, frankly, ensuring that it's supporting local and regional publications and resolving issues of news deserts that everyone shares a concern about.
Thank you very much.
Time is up. I will now go to the Liberals. Anthony Housefather for 6 minutes, please, Anthony.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just want to remind everybody why we're here today. Google has had ample opportunity, including before this committee, to talk about its views on C-18. Today, we're talking about a situation where you have over 30 million internet users in Canada, and Google has a dominant 92% share of the search engine market. Google applied a test to block news from its search engine to approximately 4% of users, according to their public statements. That suggested approximately 1.2 million Canadians were affected. That's why we're here today. Ms. Jeremiah, my questions are to you, and I would appreciate either a yes or no answer unless I ask you to expand upon it. As part of this scheme, did you use individual user data to block users from accessing news sources, yes or no?
You are muted, Ms. Jeremiah. Please. You are muted. Yes.
Apologies. Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. I would just like to disagree with the premise of this question.
Yes, I asked you a question. Ms. Jeremiah, it's my time. My question to you is, did you use individual user data to block users from accessing news sources? Yes or no?
Given the technicality of this question, I think Jason, who is an expert in ad and news, is the best person to answer that.
Ms. Jeremiah, I asked you a question. You're the person here who is the head in Canada of Google. I asked you a question. Yes or no?
Could you repeat the question, please?
As part of this scheme, did you use individual user data to block users from accessing news sources?
I think we will need to get back to you on that. And I'm also here with a subject matter expert on the test who can answer questions regarding the test.
Ms. Jeremiah, is Sundar Pichai here today?
With all due respect, Madam Chair, I'm here. I'm here on short notice. I'm the head of Google in Canada. I'm accompanied by Jason Key, who is an expert in search, news, and ads.
Ms. Jeremiah,
we're here to talk about Canadian legislation.
I'm going to ask the chair to order you to answer the question. I asked you a very clear question. Is Sundar Pichai here today? You know he was summoned by this committee. Is he here?
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. With respect, we've had very short time to prepare. I'm here for the second time this week.
I'm sorry, Ms. Jeremiah. I think you were asked to say yes or no to the question.
The answer is no.
Is Kent Walker here today?
No.
Is Richard Gingras here today?
No.
All three of them were summoned by this committee. Are you aware as to whether Mr. Walker and Mr. Gingras have visited Canada in recent months to lobby on C-18? Are you aware that Mr. Walker and Mr. Gingras have been here to lobby parliamentarians on C-18?
Yes, I am aware.
So they're willing to lobby against the bill privately, but not willing to come to the committee to speak publicly. Google has sent documents to the committee which we've recently received. My understanding is that all of the documents that Google provided to the committee are publicly available documents on Google's website. Google was asked to provide all internal and external communication, including but not limited to emails, texts, or other form of messages related to actions it planned to take or options it considered in relation to Canada's Bill C-18, including but not limited to those in relation to the testing and blocking of news sites in Canada and the list of all news organizations blocked by Google in Canada. It seems we got none of that information, but rather were thrown a bunch of publicly available information. Ms. Jeremiah, did you ever write any email or send any text that related to your plans related to C-18?
Respectfully, Madam Chair, I've been focused on preparing for this testimony. I'm here for the second time this week, and I'm here to answer questions. This is about product tests in Canada. There is another team that is working on the request for documentation. I'm aware that they are working on it. I am not close to the details. They have provided documentation to you, but I'm not close to the details.
But I asked a different question, Ms. Jeremiah. I asked if you personally have ever written an email or sent a text related to this scheme to block news content from the search engine or how Google should react to C-18.
I would like to disagree with the premise that news is available in Canada, that this is a product test. And
Ms. Jeremiah, I think that it is Mr. Housefather's time. He's asking questions. He is very clear that he wants a yes or no answer. So can you please answer his questions? Thank you.
I am here to collaborate in terms of C-18, and we've been very transparent with our concerns. We've been publishing this, etc.
Okay, but the question, Ms. Jeremiah, with due respect, the question is whether or not you ever wrote an email or sent a text that would be covered by the subject matter the committee summoned. You can answer that with a yes or no. You have personal knowledge of that. You're refusing thus far to answer. The chair has asked you to answer. Is it a yes or is it a no?
I mean, the request was very broad. It was very broad, and it was in very short notice. I am aware that I am here to collaborate, and I have been very transparent about our concerns, and I don't know exactly what you're looking for, but I'm not really clear on what you're asking.
You have 5 seconds left. I think your time
I think
is up.
Canadians will think what I asked was very clear. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And so now I go to the Bloc québécois, Martin Champeau. Martin, you 6 minutes, please.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Jeremiah, I will head down the same path as my colleague, Mr. Housefather. The motion that was carried by this committee asked Alphabet and all its subsidiaries, including Google, to provide all internal and external communications, including but not limited to emails, texts, or any other type of message regarding the measures it intends to take, etc., etc. So, Ms. Jeremiah, have there been in Alphabet or Google or any of the divisions of your business any internal communications regarding Bill C-18?
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. Look, I am not close to the details on the document requests. I'm aware that there have been documents provided.
Madam Jeremiah.
In the normal.
Ms. Jeremiah, I interrupt you. My question is extremely simple. You are a multinational corporation. Are you telling the committee that there was no internal communication on this topic? The matter is not as to whether you know what the documents are. Were there any internal communications or not? You've never chatted, never talked about this before in-house, and yet you're here talking to the committee. You say you have this Bill 68, you're testing on it, and there was no internal communication. It seems a pretty simple question, yes or no. Any internal communication about this?
So, Madam Chair, in the course of normal business, product experts, legal experts, and in some cases, leadership are made aware of product tests. You can also speak to my expert, Jason, who is here. He is an expert in search, ad, and news.
Madame Jeremiah, on va pas...
Ms. Jeremiah, let's move on to something else because it seems that this question is not something you want to answer, but we expect Google to respect the request of this committee and that you provide the documents as quickly as possible that we have requested, given that they are relevant to Canadians and Quebecers. And what you're doing now is of concern to many. You said in your opening statements that one of the concerns you have about C-18 is that it would create low-cost clickbaits, and that would be detrimental to quality journalism. You say there is no particular ethics code which is a threat to media across Canada. Are you familiar with Bill C-18, Madam?
Translation has both the English and French at the same level. Is it possible to repeat the question? I feel like I'm hearing both at the same time, and I'm struggling to hear the question.
Suspend your time, Martin. We check out what is going on here. So thank you for flagging that to Ms. Jeremiah.
Thank you.
We should try it again. It should be good now.
Est-ce que vous entendez encore?
Can you hear me better now, or are you hearing both languages at once?
Hearing you in French right now.
Et vous n'entendez pas?
And you're not hearing the English translation? Are you indeed on the English channel on your own device?
Apologies. Madam Chair, I'm on the English channel. I've confirmed, and I'm hearing French, but I'm not hearing the translation now.
Well, we will suspend again until we come to the reason for this. timing. Is everything okay? Okay, Mr. Shampoo, you have just gotten yourself some good time here. We've suspended everything so you can start again. Not
Depuis
from
le début?
scratch. No, not from
d'accord.
scratch. I'm
Ouais,
sorry. You've already had 2.29
J'aurais
minutes
essayé,
done.
Madame la Présidente. Merci.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I was asking before the interruption, I was asking if Ms. Jeremiah, given that she seems to be aware of Bill C-18, it seems that she has likely read Bill C-18. The premise seems to be that Bill C-18 is being accused by Google of imperiling real journalism by not giving specific ethics criteria in the definition of a news outlet. So I'm asking you, Ms. Jeremiah, whether you have read Bill C-18. Are you familiar with the legislation?
Question, Madam Chair. I have read the bill.
Ah, parfait. Dans ce cas-là, si
Good. So if you have read the bill, you know that there are eligibility criteria at 27(1)(b)(4). It's an amendment that the Bloc Québécois put forward and what was unanimously accepted. The media group must be a member of a recognized group or a signatory to an ethics agreement or have its own ethics code, ensuring the respect of journalistic principles, independence, equity, and rigorous treatment of news and sources. So what more is needed to ensure the admissibility of respectable news outlets?
And I think the answer is in the nuance that there is different standards of ethics for different classes. There's QCJO and others. And I'd like to pass to Jason, who is a real expert in this area and can shed more light on the differences.
Thank you. And certainly, Mr. Shampoo, via the chair, the introduction of the new Code of Ethics requirements was appreciated. But as Ms. Jeremiah acknowledged, the challenge is that it actually does not apply evenly to all the different classes of eligible news businesses that were into the bill. We have QCGO, which obviously is already its own class and where it's been undertaken review. But also we have the addition of community and campus broadcasters, for example. They're not going to be subject to codes of ethics requirements. And in fact, technically speaking, are not even required to produce news to be eligible for a broadcast license, but they're automatically eligible news business by virtue of actually having a broadcast license. So the challenge that we actually find is that the Code of Ethics requirements do not apply equally to all of them, nor was there any criteria or process around how those codes of ethics will be evaluated added to the bill.
Ouais, je pense que c'est une lecture très, très libre.
I think that's a very free reading that you're making here of this provision. I'm back to you, Ms. Jeremiah. Earlier you said that news is still available, that people can still discover, find news. Do you realize that Google...
Prépondérant.
Are you aware that Google plays a big role in people's lives, not just average citizens, but also the lives of journalists who, to carry out their work, use your search engine? Do you realize that by blocking information, you are preventing journalists, professional journalists, from carrying out their work by blocking content? And that's the case. We're aware of cases of this nature. Do you realize that these maneuvers, though they look like tests, are disloyal, bad faith pressure tactics, and that you should back up on this, withdraw this testing approach immediately, and submit yourself or agree to respect the legislation? Do you agree?
17 seconds over time for this. So perhaps, Ms. Jeremiah, you may want to respond to that in another question later on. I now go to Ms. Madison, Lindsay Madison, for the New Democrats. For 6 minutes, please, Lindsay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To build off of what was a bit covered before, Mr. May, you said that the request for information that was required by this committee was very, very broad, that you weren't given a lot of time. So because the committee is not satisfied clearly with the information that has been given, when do you intend to provide this committee with all of the information that they have requested? And you are on mute.
Please unmute, Ms. Jeremiah.
Can you hear me now? I am unmuted. I see a nod. Okay,
Yes,
thank you very much.
Go ahead.
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. My understanding is that we have provided background documents in the issue of interest to the committee. Our experts and teams are going to continue to evaluate this document request. I know that they're being collaborative, and they are working with you, and they are taking the next steps with this.
So, as the head of this company, I imagine you could set deadlines for your teams to provide that information. Would you be willing today to ensure that this committee gets the information, say, in another week? We're on a constituency week next week, so it would have it by the time this committee returns.
Respectfully, Madam Chair, the team is evaluating your requests. These things do take time. They're being collaborative. They are working with your side, and I can't speak to their deadlines.
As a CEO, I would imagine that you can speak to many of your team's deadlines. Isn't that true?
Respectfully, Madam Chair, I think I've already answered the member's question.
Whoa.
Yes, there seems to be some disagreement about that in the room, Madam Chair. In terms of how you prepared today for this meeting, for the information that has been requested, can you tell this committee how you were prepped for this meeting and how you prepared for today?
Respectfully, Madam Chair, we were here to talk about the product tests, so I have prepared with my colleague Jason Key to discuss these product tests and the potential impact of Canadian legislation on our users in Canada. And I think the important thing is that we're committed to a path forward. We support the mission of this goal, and we are contributors to News in Canada. And we contribute in really valuable and meaningful ways. We drive 3.6 billion visits. These are free visits that Canadians get to news sites when they go and they click on a link. It's worth about $250 million worth of value to them. Okay. We have licensing agreements in place with over 150 publications coast to coast. This is called Google News Showcase, and it allows newsrooms.
Yeah, I believe that actually you
content.
covered that in your introduction, so I appreciate that. I'm just going to move along with my time. Thank you. So Google claims that this decision was made in response for the censorship to oncoming Bill C-18. However, that bill isn't law yet, nor is it a censorship bill. So. My question is that this seems extremely troubling in terms of the fact that now Google is voluntarily engaging in that censorship of news content. Is that normal for Google to typically censor news?
Madam Chair, I have to disagree with the premise. News is available to Canadians. Like, Canadians consume news in so many different ways. It's available through browsers. Many people actually can, subscribe. That's an important part of the news ecosystem. They go to social media, they do other things. The tests are in response to the great uncertainty that we described in the earlier remarks. And C-18 will radically change the legal landscape for linking in Canada. This is the foundation of how the internet works. It's how we share our links. It's like we share information and the free flow of information online. So we can't assume that we're going to be able to link in the same way that we have in the past. And due to this uncertainty, tests were conducted. These are tests. They are not product decisions, and they are tests because there is just so much uncertainty right now with this legislation that we just need to understand that.
Right, but you yourself have said that you have incredible access to Canadians, and that I believe Mr. Householder said 1.2 million Canadians are potentially impacted. So this does absolutely have an impact, whether it's a test or not, and that's being voluntarily done by Google at this point. My other question, and I hope I have time, Madam Chair, to squeeze something else in. If Google is so I'm sorry?
You have a little less than a minute.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. one of the concerns that you have raised is that ultimately that this will hurt smaller news sources. It won't allow for those news sources to come forward. However, in response to the bill and some of the changes that actually my colleague Peter Julian, part of the New Democratic team, made, have been highlighted by specific Indigenous news media sources, by the spokesperson for Independent Online Publishers of Canada. So how is it that those people in the trenches find this a positive move, and yet Google does not?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Madam Chair, because, innovation, diversity, and having different voices in news is really important to us. We do a lot of work on that on the Google News initiatives. We've trained 1,500 journalists. We're on the way to training 5,000. We support newsrooms with tools. We've actually done a series of startup and boot camps for emerging voices in news from coast to coast across the country. I think the question is a very good one on just this notion of, the broadened eligibility versus how the bill is constructed, who it would benefit. And I'd like to pass to Jason Key, who's an expert in this area.
Thank you. Essentially, the core concern of the structure of this bill versus, say, the adoption of a fund or a similar model is that using links as the basis for payment actually incentivizes a potential clickbait journalism, but also is that it will naturally benefit those larger legacy publishers or broadcasters that have more content to link to than smaller players that are not necessarily producing content at that same kind of volume. Given that we're actually looking to incentivize essentially long-form investigative journalism that's thoughtful versus short-form, low-quality journalism, the entire structure, it's going to necessarily kind of lean towards supporting larger players.
Sorry, Mr. Kep, you're suggesting that Google is the source on what is low-quality journalism entirely?
We'll have to go back to this answer, Mr. Key. I think you're well over time, Ms. Matheson. I'm sorry. I go to the next list of the 5-minute round, and we begin with the Conservatives, and I think we have up for questioning Mr. Shield. Sorry, Martin. Not that I forgot you, but there you are. 5 minutes, please.
I'd be a disaster to be forgotten. All right, thank you. All right. I have been involved in negotiations in different levels. So the blocking is a problem for me of what you've done. The unintended consequences of what you've done, I think, is a mistake. When I look at the compensation that you're looking at, weekly papers is my writing. And I think on both sides of it, we've missed the local papers on this one. This committee's known that for some time, my opinion on that, in the sense of the weekly papers, 13 or 14 that I have in my writing. And I think you have missed it, and I think we have missed it in this legislation. But I think your attempt in blocking, there could have been another mechanism, in my belief, that you may have attempted to resolve this issue with the ministry, with the minister, instead of playing games like we see in negotiations that happened with Australia. So I don't think this is a way to resolve this particular issue. I think you were proactive with Taiwan. I don't know what you thought of the amendments that came out of the Senate. Many were accepted, some weren't. We probably are on the side of some of the ones that weren't. We would support. We would propose them. You've got legal problems in the UK. You've got legal problems in the US. They're coming at it in two different ways. Blocking is something, I think, that irritates the local people, the grassroots people. The unintended consequences here of this move, I don't think is a way to negotiate, and I think it's a mistake on your part. Your reaction?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Madam Chair. And I think the part about local news is very important. And there are some really innovative stories about local news in Canada. There's a story about Village Media. They, in 2016, had a handful of employees, and now they have 145 people, and 90 of which are journalists, and they're supporting 20 Canadian communities. And we partnered with them through the GNI. And I think that's really one example of many, and it is really important. In terms of the premise of the question, these are product tests. These are product tests just in response to a legal landscape for linking in Canada that just has radically changed. This is, again, the foundation of the open web, and we can't assume that we're going to be able to link to the same way that we have in the past. And I really wholeheartedly agree with...
I need to interrupt you because what you say in technological terms is not how it is seen. You can call it whatever you want, but it's not interpreted that way at the end user. So you can call it a test, you can call it a number of different things, but that's not how we perceive it, and that's not how consumers will perceive it. It's a tactical negotiations. You've seen this story before. We've seen it with Australia. And when we talk about weekly newspapers, I'm talking about mom and pop 1. It's not going to grow to 15 or 20. It's going to stay at 1. I've got communities who depend on their local papers, and you're negotiating with guys who don't need this money compared to my weekly papers. And they're not going to get the money. They're not going to get what you're offering. It's not going to go to them. They're at risk in my communities, and this legislation and you are not going to fix it with it. I'm sorry. So you can call it a test all you want, but there's unintended consequences of what you're doing, and it's going to hurt.
May I reply, Madam Chair?
Yes, I think Mr. Shields was addressing you, Ms. Jeremiah.
Yes. You know, local news and innovative news and diverse news is important, which is why we recommended a fund, which is why we have recommended solutions around that, starting with that throughout this process. And the Taiwanese example is one example of, I think, more broadened thinking around this that excites me as well. And I do really believe in this objective and would love nothing more than a solution in this area. And I'd like to pass to Jason, who is closer to the Taiwanese example, because I think that is a very, it's an important example to discuss.
And as Sabrina indicated, like the Taiwanese example is precisely the approach that we would like to adopt. It's precisely the approach to ensure that we're providing funding to, again, local and regional papers, those small players, particularly also those who are doing really interesting, innovative work. And so those are kind of the approaches that we've adopted. I did want to make a quick mention that, to be clear, said that these are product tests, and product tests are actually normal course of business when you're considering any range of product changes. This is actually very ordinary. I appreciate, the observation with respect to how it's being perceived. It's certainly not the intent. It's also, again, us responding to a radically changing landscape rapidly, so we can actually responsibly understand what the impact of those changes would be. And certainly, it's also worth noting that C18 is very different in structure than Australia. In Australia, there was concerns that were basically raised. We interacted with the government, and the government created a system where...
My time is running out, but the last comment I made, perception is reality. Perception is reality, and you missed it. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shields. And now I go to the Liberals, Lisa Hepner. Lisa, for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to express how concerned and disturbed I am by this so-called test by Google here in Canada. As a former member of the media in Hamilton, I know from my constituents regularly, they tell me how important it is for them to have access to good local news and news coverage. And we know that these days, a lot of people go through a Google search to find certain stories. And so I'm incredibly concerned by this. I think it shows Google is abusing its dominance in the marketplace in order to try and strong-arm the Canadian government. And I would like to remind the committee that this type of legislation actually worked really well in Australia for both big players and small local media outlets. And I think at this point in the committee, we've, as committee members, noted that we are not getting fulsome answers from these witnesses. And so at this point, Madam Chair, I would like to move that we put these witnesses under oath. Thank you.
Thank you. Clerk? Pardon?
It's at the discretion of the committee. So it's up to the
Yes, I'm going to. Is anyone objecting to this on the committee? the suggestion of putting the witnesses under oath? I see no objections, so yes, I think we move to do that, Clerk. Thank you. So, yes, go ahead.
Okay, so I'll begin with Ms. Jeremiah. I have to ask you, would you prefer a religious oath or a solemn affirmation?
A solemn affirmation, please.
Okay, so shouldn't take too long. I'll just get you to repeat after me. So I state your name.
I, Sabrina Jeremiah,
Do solemnly, sincerely, and truly affirm
do solemnly, sincerely, and truly affirm
and declare the taking of any oath
and declare the taking of any oath
is according to my religious belief unlawful.
is according to my religious belief lawful.
I do also solemnly, sincerely, and truly affirm
I do also solemnly and sincerely and truly affirm
and declare that the evidence I shall give
and declare that the evidence I shall give
on this examination shall be the truth,
and on this examination shall be the truth,
the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
That's it. So we'll move on to
Mr. Key?
Mr. Key.
Solemn affirmation, please.
Thank you. I state your name.
I, Jason Key,
Do solemnly, sincerely, and truly affirm
do solemnly, sincerely, sorry, could you repeat that?
do solemnly, sincerely, and truly affirm
Do solemnly, sincerely, and truly affirm
and declare the taking of any oath
and declare the taking of any oath
is according to my religious belief unlawful.
is according to my religious belief unlawful.
I do also solemnly, sincerely, and truly affirm
I do also solemnly, sincerely, and truly affirm
and declare that the evidence I shall give
and declare that the evidence that I shall give
on this examination shall be the truth,
on this examination shall be the truth,
the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Key. The witnesses have been duly sworn in, committee, so we can now proceed with Ms. Hepner's questions. I would just, before we go to Ms. Hepner, I would just like to suggest that it's very clear what this committee wanted to meet about, and it was not only to discuss tests. It was very clear that this committee was asked for the activities of Google in reaction to Bill C-18, but not limited to the decision to test the blocking of news sites. So this was not a limited committee hearing. Secondly, the committee asked for any internal or external communications, including but not limited to emails, texts, or other forms of messages related to actions it planned to take or options it considered in relation to Canada's Bill C-18, including but not limited to those in relation to the testing of the blocking of news items. So it's not limited to testing once again. And that the committee asked for the list of all news organizations blocked by Google in Canada. And there was a time to deliver this. This is now, an extra week was given to Google because of technological difficulties on Monday. So I am just putting that on the table for those listening and for Google to understand that it was very clear what was required of them. So that in answering, since you've taken an oath, you will really consider the questions that the committee has risen in pertaining to your appearance here. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Jeremiah, please tell us which Canadians specifically were targeted for this so-called test, and why were those Canadians targeted?
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. This is a technical question that is not my area of expertise. I'm not trying to be evasive here. I have a subject matter expert, Jason.
It's a pretty simple question, Ms. Jeremiah. Do you not know which Canadians were specifically targeted in this test? This
was not a targeted test. When tests are done, they are done with random samples. But again, I have a subject matter expert here with me.
That was an answer. Thank you. But I'm asking because surveys by journalism organizations like the Canadian Association of Journalists and Unifor Media Council have suggested in the last couple of weeks that these tests were disproportionately impacting media workers. So journalists in particular, it seems, were targeted by these tests. Is that true, Ms. Jeremiah?
That is categorically incorrect.
Okay. For the purposes of this test, you needed to determine that what you were blocking was indeed a news source or news content. So how did you decide what was a news source when you were coming up with this test?
Madam Chair, I am the country manager for Google in Canada. I was aware of these tests, but I was not close to the detail, and I have brought with me a subject matter expert who is in a better position to answer some of these more nuanced questions. I'd like to ask Jason.
Mr. Key, please tell us, how did you decide in this Google test what was a news source?
So as part of normal course, product teams, legal teams, and other experts, including where appropriate leadership, will basically conduct assessments with respect to what the potential impact of a legislative initiative like Bill C-18 might be. In the case of Bill C-18,
Sorry, we're not talking about Bill C-18 here, sir, where I asked you specifically how Google is deciding what's news and what's not news for the purpose of this arbitrary test.
Well, in the case of Bill C-18, the effort was to utilize that bill.
I'm not sure why you keep referring to the legislation, sir. I'm asking about the Google test and how Google decided what was news when it decided to block news from Canadians' Google feed.
It was effectively an effort utilizing our experience and partnerships teams to identify what would constitute Canadian news organizations and Canadian news domains.
Did Google block? Thank you. Did Google block users from being able to see content from the specific Canadian news organizations that already have secret deals with Google?
The Google News Showcase commercial arrangements had no bearing on the application of the test. Again, those are not secret, nor is the test. The specific definitions of eligible news business and the application of C-18 was the basis by which the tests were being undertaken. And because it was really to understand what the impact would be on both the product and the users in the event that we were no longer able to serve links.
Okay, interesting. So we...
Sorry, Ms.
out?
Hebner, yeah.
Okay.
You're out. Thank you very much. And so the next person to speak would be Martin Champoux for the block. 2.5 minutes, please, Martin.
J'ai trouvé ça très intéressant.
I find it very interesting to hear it said that there was an excessive impact in news workers. Under these measures, they are among the most respectable organizations, especially at Unifor, one of the most important unions covering the news in our country. Ms. Jeremiah, you've told us several times that the questions put to you are not linked to your area of expertise, but to that question you were quite clear, and I found that surprising. So tell me, Ms. Jeremiah, what are you basing yourself on to decide now about your tests that your undertakings testing doesn't have the impact that Unifor and the other representatives of the information sector are saying that are having an impact on their work? What are the criteria you're using to answer so clearly right now, even though your tests haven't been completed?
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. Testing is a really part of what technology companies in Canada do, what Google does. And it's very clear that, the samples and A/B tests, et cetera, they need to be appropriately thought through, and they need they are not.
Madame Jeremiah, sur quoi vous...
Ms. Jeremiah, what are you basing yourself on to say that there is no impact on these particular people? Have you received the results of the tests? Are you able to say that, yes, indeed, the quality of information and the work of these professionals, these news professionals at issue, have not been affected, has not been affected by this testing? Have you received reports about the testing that confirms that you can say that so clearly to us here today, although the workers in this area themselves tell us that's not the case? What are you basing your answer on?
Thank you for the question. It is just not something that we do in testing, and I'd like to pass to Jason.
No, Madame Jeremiah.
No, Ms. Jeremiah. I will leave it at that because you don't have an answer. I think you're saying just about anything, Ms. Jeremiah. You can't contradict people who are actually affected by your tests at present. It's just, saying anything. Google, throughout all the hearings we've had in studying this bill at our committee, Google has always said we don't agree to this, but we will respect the legislation as we do in any country that we do business in. Ms. Jeremiah, Bill C-18 will be carried in the House, will be passed. Probably you're not happy about that, but will you respect the legislation, as Google says it will, as a good corporate citizen of any country in which it does business?
You have 3 seconds in which to give a simple answer.
Yes or no?
Thank you for the question. Yes.
Voilà, merci.
Thank you very much.
And I now go to the New Democrats for Ms. Matheson. 2.5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The decision to censor the media through this test, was that made by Google Canada Corporation or from the parent company?
Madam Chair, I want to just disagree with the premise of the member's question. News is available. This was a test in response to legislation that foundationally changes the legal landscape for linking in Canada. This is the foundation on how people share links across the open web.
Okay.
And we cannot assume that we can link in the same way that we've linked before.
You have disagreed before. However, was the decision to run this test that of Google Canada Corporation or your parent company?
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. It's the normal course of business that product teams are going to work with legal teams. There's going to be other experts, and when appropriate, our leadership is informed to help understand potential tests and decisions. And again, these are product tests, and no product decisions have been made.
Was this product test a decision that was made to run by Google Corporate in Canada or by the parent company?
In the normal course of business, product teams, legal teams, and leadership, they're all involved in understanding this and the impact of legislation on our products.
Madam Chair.
I would like to suggest that it was a pretty clear question, and I would like you to answer it, please, Ms. Jeremiah.
I think I've been clear that when appropriate, leadership is involved in understanding product impact and understanding testing that involves legislation.
Is it normal for senior leadership to propose these A/B tests?
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. A/B testing is a normal course of business. It is a normal course of business across everything we do. There are thousands of tests that we do every year. This is a legislation that has broadened, and it's broadened so much wider.
This isn't a question about the legislation. I'm sorry. This is about the tests.
Can you repeat the question, please?
I'm sorry, the time is up. But I think that as a chair, I have to say that I am having a difficult time when questions are pretty clear. They're clear to me. I think they're very clear in the way they're being asked, and they're not being answered. And I want to put that on record that I am noting this. Thank you. Your time is now up, Ms. Matheson, and I'm sorry you did not get your answers. To Mr. Kevin Waugh, who is for 5 minutes for the Conservatives. Kevin?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I too agree with you. We're not getting a lot of answers, and we're very disappointed in your testimony today, Ms. Jeremiah. You continue to deflect a lot of the questions, and that's not what Canadians are looking for. 1.2 million Canadians were shut out, 4% of the population that use Google. And you never told people you're blocking them out. You just arbitrarily did it, which is another issue that I have with your search engines. How many has been affected? 1.2 million. Why didn't you disclose this in advance for people at home that would be searching particular sites and all of a sudden have found nothing and they think it's their phone or their iPad when in fact it's you playing with them? Why didn't you tell us in advance?
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. I think with product testing, there are nuances on tests, and it's the normal course of business that we don't disclose tests. But Jason is our ads and
product. No, I don't want to hear from Jason. You know, I'm sorry, I'm done. Okay, we're talking to you. My questions are to you. So, you know, in the course of less than an hour, we find out now you've tested 11,500 times in this country. We don't know what you're testing, but you have confirmed 11,500 test results. You're going through product tests. I don't know what you're testing. You don't tell Canadians what you're testing. It's the first time Canadians have even heard of product testing up until a week ago. So how long are you going to continue with 4% of the population, 1.2 million serious Canadians, I might add, that you're going to continue this product testing on what you're looking for? In fact, what are you looking for?
Well, thank you for the question, Madam Chair. Product testing is really a normal part of any technology company in Canada and beyond. A lot of product tests might be to improve user experience. It might be to help understand, for example, where drop-off rates are on how things can work better. It is an A/B test. One of the reasons that it is done is because you want the results to be thoughtful on this. So there are tests going on all the time on trying to understand, and it's really a core part of improving user experience, improving user outcomes in technology, and it is a very common practice for almost any technology company in Canada.
Could you give the committee the list of product tests that you have done in this country in 2023? So I'm going to narrow it for you. From January 1st of 2023 until today, March, can you give us a list after this committee on the product testing that you have done in this country? We have no idea. And I say that because in the last 2 weeks, Beijing interference in this country. I say it's Google interference now. I don't know what you're testing for. Our Canadians don't know what you're testing for. We have no idea. But guess what? You're going to give us the list, because I'm going to demand that list from Google Canada to give us the list what you're product testing on Canadians. So today we find out 4% of the population happen to actually, their democratic right has been kind of put to the side, wouldn't you say? I don't know. You might have Google tested me. I might be one of the 1.2 million that all of a sudden I can't get the Google search. Is that fair for me to know that you're doing this on myself or other Canadians? I don't think that's fair. You're a $1.2, $1.3 trillion company, and I think you've overexceeded your boundaries. And I think Canadians would also today say that Google has overexceeded their boundaries. I know you're upset about C18 and you want product testing and all that, but that's not what we're here for. I think Google has overstepped your boundaries in this country, deciding what the product testing is all about. We have no idea.
30 seconds.
So I would like to assure the committee that you're going to give us the list for the last 2.5 months, what Google in this country has produced for product testing. So So that will give Mr. Key something to do, because I don't really want to hear from him. So that will give him something to do when we leave committee here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wall. I now go to
Okay, thank you for
the Liberal Party of Canada, Chris Biddle. 5 minutes, Chris.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. And, you know, it's truly disgusting what we've seen here today. In my 7 years, I haven't seen a witness sworn in mid-testimony because the members of this committee don't think you're being truthful, Ms. Jeremiah. It's as straightforward as that. You have been evasive to every single member of this committee, each of us democratically elected to represent our constituents. You pretend to not know anything. If it's truthful, I think your shareholders would be appalled. But I think you're being evasive. You owe it to the Canadian people to answer these questions. You do billions of dollars worth of business here, and Canadians expect answers, and we are here to ask them. And so I expect answers. These will be very clear questions. First one, you're currently being investigated in multiple jurisdictions, the EU, the UK, the United States, for abusing their market power. If there was a Canadian news story to confirm that you're being sued by the United States Department of Justice in 8 states, including California, over your company's dominance in ad tech, there would be Canadians that would be unable to access that through a normal Google news search. Is that correct? Yes or no?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question, please, Madam Chair?
You're being sued in the United States by the Department of Justice for your monopolistic tendencies. If there was a Canadian news story on that, it would be blocked to users in Canada. Yes or no?
Respectfully, I can't comment on.
It's yes or no. Would that story
US
be blocked? Comment or
legislation?
not, you don't comment on the legislation. Would the story be blocked?
The
You're
story,
under oath, Ms. Jeremiah.
I don't understand
I don't think
your
you respect.
question.
I don't think you understand the gravity of this and a charge of perjury. Would that be blocked by users in this country if there was a Canadian news story about you being sued by the United States Department of Justice? Would it be blocked? Yes or no?
If there was a story that was within
Canadian
the
news
product
story. This is
test,
Excuse
clear.
me,
A
Ms.
Canadian-
Jeremiah, the question is clear to me.
if it was a
Can you
Canadian
answer, please?
story, sorry, if it was a Canadian story within the ambit of the test, and the test and the arm of the test was related to that, then the stories regarding that could.
So we'll take that
could
as a yes,
not
that would be
appear.
blocked. I'll even drill down a little bit. Before I came up to Ottawa, I bought a car seat for my daughter, and I used your product. I used Google to Google the car seat. If there was a Canadian news story about the safety and efficacy of that car seat, it could be blocked under this test. Isn't that true?
Madam
Yes.
Chair,
So that's
news
yes.
is available to Canadians within the test.
It
That
could
is
be-
a yes.
Yes. Thank you. When Merrick Garland stated, the United States Attorney General, for 15 years, Google has pursued a course of anti-competitive conduct that has allowed it to halt the rise of rival technologies, manipulate ad auction mechanics to insulate itself from competition, and forced advertisers and publishers to use its tools. If there was a Canadian news story about that, that would be blocked under this test. Correct?
We're talking about news within the test with very specific examples, and I'm not clear if you want me to just reply to that or if you would like me
Just
to
the
reply
very
to something
specific
different.
example. If there was a Canadian news story about that, it would be blocked.
If there is a Canadian news story within something within the ambit of that test, it could conceivably not appear on Google, but it is not blocked. It is still available through other sources.
So you block potentially safety advocacy, putting children at risk. I'll ask you another one. I was doing some research the other day where we're also studying violence in sport, and there was a coach who was charged with sexual crimes. I used Google to search his name. It didn't come up. I used Bing. Using the same search result, his name came up. So the identities of sexual predators could also be blocked if there's a Canadian news story about them, as I found that using your product versus Microsoft's product. Is that true under the ambit of this test?
Under the ambit of this test, if the news organization was included, that is possible.
So it's pretty clear. You looked at what Facebook...
30 seconds.
It's pretty clear that you looked at what Facebook did in Australia and said, this is a pretty good idea. We're going to test this. Your conduct here today has shown limited regard for this democracy, for this parliament, for the representatives here. I would ask that you expedite your document review so we can compare it to your testimony. We may be needing to speak to the law clerk about further actions involving Google because this has been wholly unacceptable, Madam Chair. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Biddle. I now go to the third round. And the third round is another 5-minute round, and we begin with Bob Zimmer for the Conservative Party. Bob is not... Oh, sorry, Bob. I can't see the screen behind me. Sorry, Bob. Go ahead. 5 minutes, please.
Should be good. Thank you. Thanks, Madam Chair. Just simple question. Where is your CEO, Mr. Pakai, today?
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. I'm here to represent. I'm here for the second time this week. I can't comment on.
So can I just follow up with that? Because, by seeing all accounts of this C-18 legislation to your company and the precedent that it's supposed to set globally for you, that at least you would have sent your CEO to speak to a country that represents 38 million people or the House of Commons that represents 38 million people. I'll move on to my next comment or question. I just spoke 2 days ago in the House of Commons about Bill C-27 and its implications to Canadians about privacy. Google once attempted to build a smart city in Toronto that would have collected massive amounts of personal and very private information for money. The basis of your business is surveillance, and you make a lot of money doing it. We now see you as a company threaten Canadians that you will be censoring, or you have censored 4% of the news content in Canada. A simple question, yes or no. Do you think it's okay to block any news content to Canadians?
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. News is available through browsers, through apps, through websites. We're talking about product tests.
The question I asked you was a simple, yet I'll repeat the question. Do you think it's okay to block any news content to Canadians? Yes or no?
Respectfully, Madam Chair, we want to provide news to Canada. We provide significant value and news to Canada.
I have to move on because my time is very short. So I take that as a yes, because you are doing it. We had a previous member speak up, asked you a simple question about blocking news about a car seat, and you agreed that was happening. So I'll move on, though. From us on this side in opposition, we don't trust Justin Trudeau either, frankly, and legislation put forward by his government. Remember, this is the same government. We talk about the online monitoring and the digital public square and the threats that C-11 poses to it, along with C-18. And I think a lot of Canadians are fearful of what the Prime Minister can decide whether somebody sees a particular item in the news or can't see that item in the news, or can deplatform a certain user or boost another. So, and then we have what's before the House right now in foreign interference in our elections, and also the demonizing of peaceful protesters not that long ago. So I'm going to ask you a question about your concerns around C-18. We've heard a lot of concerns about the internet tax and the possible threat to freedom of information for Canadians. What is the risk to freedom of information if Bill C-18 passes?
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. I think the important thing is that Canadians want us to work together on a healthy news ecosystem, and there are many ways to do this, which doesn't actually have a cost on the free links and search. And I think that, the path forward, we've talked about funds in Taiwan. We've talked about other ways to do this. I think as you can understand from this conversation, it gets very kind of complicated really quickly, and putting a price on links is unprecedented. And we haven't talked about the difference between Australia, and I know that's come up many times. In Australia, no platform was designated under the bill, so the provisions of the bill remain untested, and that is the difference here. And the whole point is that what is the path forward in order to to make a healthy news and to continue to support a healthy news ecosystem in Canada. And the amendments that we provided, which Jason can speak to, offer some very specific areas on how to amend the language so it's not about free links, how to actually make this about news. Again, thank you for the provisions that were made on journalistic standards. I think there's more to go in that.
Maybe, and I know my time is probably close up. I just would say just a final comment. Frankly, from my experience previously with Google's invasion of privacy and privacy and surveillance, frankly, Canadians can't trust Google. And I'd say for most Canadians now watching about foreign interference, we can't trust Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party either. Thank you.
Much, Mr. Zimmer. And now I go to the Liberals. Anthony Housefather, 5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I just want to clarify, when somebody goes to the Google search engine and expects to see news when they put in a keyword search, they will not know that news isn't there. So the idea that they can just go find that news somewhere else when they're used to using Google and doing a keyword search and expecting that all the news related to that keyword would be there, and you didn't disclose this testing to Canadians beforehand, and Mr. Waugh said, is completely contrary then to what you're saying, that you can just go find the news somewhere else. People felt that they could rely on a product in the way they always had, and they were suddenly deprived of that. I also want to put in context the fact that Google earned $279 billion in the last fiscal year. Google's CEO, Mr. Pichai, earned approximately $280 million in compensation in 2019, mostly through stock awards. And the entire amount in the first fiscal year after Australia passed a news bargaining code paid to Australian news organizations was $150 million. That's the context of the amounts that Google is so threatened by here. Ms. Jeremiah, I'm going to come back. Who was the highest ranking executive at Google that was aware of this testing before it occurred?
Mr. Housefather, it is common practice.
I just want to name, was Mr. Walker aware of the testing before it occurred?
It is common practice for senior leadership
yes or no?
to be aware.
You're under oath. Was Mr. Walker aware of the testing before it occurred? Yes or no? You are under oath.
It is common practice for leadership
Madam
to
Chair,
be aware.
I would ask you to please order the witness to answer the question.
It is common practice for senior leaders to be aware.
Could you please answer the question? Thank
you. Yes, they were aware.
Yes, Mr. Walker was aware. Was Mr. Pichai aware?
It's common practice for leaders to be aware of product testing.
So there are thousands of tests that you have advised this committee that you do. And you're telling me that the chief legal officer and the CEO of Google would be aware of them. All over the world, Google does this testing. And yet you're saying that these two individuals would be aware of this multiplicity of thousands of tests. Yes or no? Was this test done in an unusual way? Were more senior executives at Google aware of this testing than other standard tests at Google?
Because of the nature of this test, yes, senior leadership is aware.
Thank you.
It's normal practice for business for senior leadership to be aware.
I come from the tech world. It would not be normal practice for senior leadership to be aware of normal testing. It would be if it was an unusual test of this type of scope. Did you attempt to hide the fact that you were doing this testing from Canadians, or did you intend that Canadians would become aware of it?
Respectfully, Madam Chair, it's very difficult to do a test and to give notice on a test. So tests are not done across search and other products with acknowledgement. That's just standard course for most tech countries.
You were aware
in the business.
Ms. Jeremiah, you were aware this was a very unusual type of test. My question is, did you believe Canadians would eventually become aware of this testing, yes or no? Remember that Australia, you did this, and people became aware of it because news organizations caught you. Did you believe that Canadians would become aware of this test when you authorized it?
In relation to the test, which is a test again, and it's not product decisions, there is a chance that, we were aware that folks would understand this and would see this, as
right.
you mentioned.
I think that you were aware, and I think that you wanted us to be aware, and you wanted the House of Commons and Senate, particularly that is now going to vote on C-18, to be aware of this threat. I think that you intentionally intended to make Canadians aware of it so that we would be afraid to pass C-18 in the Senate because of the threat that you would block news content. Was that not the real reason you did this test and did it at this timing?
With respect, Madam Chair, the timing of it was because the committee process broadened the eligibility of news so significantly that there's so much detail that we don't understand. It is pretty normal to do tests, and I understand the gravity of what you're saying.
Right. So my question again is, you knew that Canadians would become aware. And what would the end result be? This was an attempt to pressure parliamentarians to do the amendments in the Senate that Google wanted for C-18. And that seems to me to be the end result of what you actually intended to do. And I have one other question. Oh, sorry. No,
sorry,
your
5 minutes is up, Anthony. I'm very I'm going to go to Mr. Champoux of the Bloc. Martin, 2.5 minutes, please.
Merci, Madame.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Jeremiah, earlier, my colleagues, Mr. Biddle and Mr. Housefather, have provided you with examples. Mr. Biddle spoke of some effects that your measures may have had on the lives of Canadians and Quebecers, and they are considerable. The Google search engine, Ms. Jeremiah, as you know full well, is surely the most used. It's so dominant in the market that it's even become a verb. You will Google something. Both in French and in English, we use that as a verb, and probably in other language as well. So when you take over such a large part of a market that is relevant to the lives of all citizens in an entire country and many countries, that comes with responsibility. I'm surprised that hasn't been understood. I'm sure you have. But look, I want to give you a chance to come through because it hasn't been going so well for you this afternoon as it is. So in the Code of Conduct, let me read it, by the way. This is Google.
Isn't right. Speak up. Tantôt, on vous a donné des exemples.
Earlier, you were provided with examples of situations that might seriously imperil the lives of Quebecers or Canadians, and both in very specific situations, but, very likely scenarios. So you carried out tests irrespective of this, despite the fact that the effects on Canadians might be considerable. Do you now agree to, for one, stop this testing, which we all agree are not justified? And do you also undertake to advise all of the 1.2 million Canadians, more or less, who are affected by such tests, that they are being affected by such tests, so that they might at least take the precaution of using other search engines to ensure that they get hold of information rather than simply falling under the confusion that this doesn't exist? And do you undertake to inform Canadians that they are being used for tests? I'm looking for a quick answer to this and sincere undertakings on your part, because what we've heard so far from you, Ms. Jeremiah, is not exactly satisfactory.
To answer the question.
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. These are product tests. They have a duration, and
Ils ont un impact aussi, Madame.
Yes, they also have an effect. I've put a simple question. Do you undertake to tell the people who are or will be affected by tests now and in the future? You have 5 seconds to answer, yes or no.
Back the team and get back to you. They will need to get back to you. I don't have the answer to that.
Je m'attends à un engagement de la part de Google.
I expect an undertaking from Google in this regard, Ms. Jeremiah.
Thank you. So we will expect that response to be sent to the clerk of this committee. And now we go to Ms. Matheson for the NDP for 2.5 minutes, please. Lindsay.
Thank you. So I had asked earlier about the preparation that you underwent, Ms. Jeremiah, for this meeting and understanding what was at stake here. Can you tell me, did you, when you were preparing for this, did you meet with your government relations lobbyist team, and did you discuss the impact of this testing and censorship with your government relations team?
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. News is available in Canada, and I think I've mentioned that before. Yes, I've had discussions with the government relations team in response to the request to appear at this committee.
Point, did you discuss what ultimately Mr. Housefather was trying to get at in terms of the timing of this committee, the timing of your testing, and the timing of the Senate's and the passage of Bill C-18?
With respect, Madam Chair, we're conducting tests to understand product impact on legislation that's not finished. The committee phase broadened it. And it just became so vague, so unclear, so many details sent to a second phase. There's never really a good time for testing. And we did the testing to try to understand potential impact. We are aware that the bill is not finalized yet.
So under oath, you're saying specifically that the test has absolutely, and the timing of these tests have absolutely nothing to do with the passage of Bill C-18.
Well, in the fact that the committee process broadened it and it has not passed, that is why the tests were conducted, is trying to understand one of the solutions of many. And we hope that there are other solutions to work through because we share the objective of what this bill is trying to do.
Okay. Another question, and it actually follows along the line of Mr. Biddle's line of questioning, in terms of all of those things that have been censored, in terms of what information people were able to get. Do you happen to know if any members of Parliament were part of that test?
Thank you for the question. Again, I want to make it really, really clear that these are random tests. The line of question just confuses me as someone in terms of A/B testing and technology that tech companies across the world and Canada do. That's not the way tests are run, and I want to be super clear on that. Although I'm not the expert on that, that is really how tests are run. It is a no.
In terms of that randomization,
I'm sorry, Irene.
Irene.
I'm sorry, Lindsay. Sorry for invoking your mom. We have. Pardon? All right, Kevin. Okay, thanks. All right, and now we go to Mr. Deltal for the Conservatives. You have 5 minutes, Mr. Deltal.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. It's such a pleasure to be here. It's the first time I've had the privilege of sitting here in this committee that you chair so well, so it's a pleasure to be here. I am here to substitute for the MP of Lethbridge, Ms. Arter, and as the regulation provides for, under Standing Order 108.2, I would like to table the notice of motion that was mentioned by Ms. Lethbridge about a month ago, and I will read it.
A. The Senate made substantial amendments to Bill C-11, the Online Streaming Act, and has returned the bill to the House. And B. The government will be preparing their response to those amendments imminently. The committee immediately undertake a study of the subject matter of the Senate amendments to Bill C-11 and report their recommendations to the House. Madame la Présidente, la raison pour laquelle...
Madam Chair, the reason why we are bringing forth this amendment is that we know full well that Bill C-11, which has been studied by this committee, is a matter of much debate, and it has been for some time. Remember that a couple of months ago, even years ago, it was called C-10, but that the current government decided at that time to call an election, which, as we all know, cost $600 and some million for an electoral result, was pretty much the same. But anyway, we lost months. We lost months and months of work. Now, that's what happened, so we just have to deal with it. The bill, as we know, is nevertheless of great importance. It touches on broadcasting, and it's really just a dusting off of legislation that has been around for a while to deal with the 21st century issues in broadcasting, 2003 and so forth. So it's an important piece of legislation that deserves that we work hard on it. That's why the Senate is debating the matter, is focused on the matter, As you know, we have no specific control over what goes on in the Senate, but the senators have decided, after their due diligence, and they certainly have a good reputation in this regard, to suggest many amendments. And it is important that we examine these as parliamentarians. We need to decide whether there are some good things among the amendments proposed by the Senate.
Is the future of Internet and the future of radiodiffusion in this country. So this is why we have to be a very serious study. The senators have done their job directly, and well done job. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we disagree, but they've done what they are supposed to do, and they did it well. But if we want to be serious on this bill, we have to hear what they have to say. What they have to adopt. Nous avons également inscrit cette...
We have also brought forward this motion, which, as you see, allows some leeway. Because over the last few weeks, there has been an unusual event. I am an MP in Quebec, the Louis Saint Laurent riding, and what's going on in our provincial capital, Quebec City, has a good deal of effect on us. So given that this has an effect on me, I think that it is our duty, the MPs of Quebec and the MPs of the House of Commons, need to take action on legislation being debated at the Canadian Parliament level. So that's why on the 4th of February, the Honourable Minister of Culture of the Government of Quebec asked the federal government to take into account the will of Quebec to be heard on the matter in order to help orient the choices of the CRTC. The government of Quebec would like to be heard directly on this matter. So, Chair, we feel as parliamentarians that it is our duty when a provincial legislation or assembly makes such a request to take it seriously. Let's remember, Madam Chair, that a few days after that letter was sent, the Quebec legislature adopted a unanimous motion. All 125 provincial MPs made the same request, that Quebec be respected in its request. And as we know, Quebec is really the heartland of the French language in Quebec. So the request from Quebec unanimously was to have Quebec heard on this matter, on this bill. So it seems clear, it seems quite legitimate that they should be. I will remind my colleagues that often some of my colleagues and myself have offered to the Minister of Heritage, Canadian Heritage, that they to share their point of view on this matter, share their point of view on Quebec's request. We've asked several times.
Et donc c'est pour ça nous souhaitons.
And this is why we would like to see this motion carried. I would have many other things to say, but time is short.
Thank you. So we have now got a motion on the floor, and I suppose we have to decide on if there is a discussion of this motion. No discussion on the motion? Yes, Mr. Waugh?
Madam Chair, I'll be very short. I would like this to come to committee. We have seen the concerns out of Quebec. I've been with C10 and C11 for over 2 years. So, I mean, I would love it, one more shot coming back here to look at the 8 amendments that were turned down by the Liberals from the Senate. And I would just like to have one last look at it.
Thank you, Mr. Waugh. Anyone else wishing to speak to this? Sorry, Ms. Gladue.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I would like to have this talked about at committee, this motion, because I missed the joy of studying C11 when it came by the first time, but I'm very concerned that one of the Senate amendments that would protect, like it would exclude individual user content, was rejected by the government. So definitely we need to have this back for that discussion and hear some testimony about it.
Thank you, Ms. Gladue. Seeing no other hands up to discuss this, I will call the question on the motion. Anyone opposing this motion? I see hands in the room, so I guess I'm going to have to ask the clerk to call the question. Thank you.
I'll start with Monsieur Dattel.
Pour.
Mr. Waugh.
For.
Ms. Gladue.
In favor.
Mr. Lewis.
I'm in favor.
Sorry, I think. Oh, sorry. Okay. Sorry, guys. Sorry, Chair. Sorry, clerk.
Mr. Biddle. Monsieur Coteau.
Against.
Ms. Hefner. Mr. Housefather.
Contre.
Mr. Lewis.
Against.
Monsieur Champoux.
Contre.
And Ms. Matheson.
Against.
Thank you.
We have 7 nays, 4 yeas.
7 nays, 4 yeas. Really? Is that what you said, clerk? Sorry, I didn't hear that properly. Thanks.
Seven
nays,
nays,
4 yeas. The motion is not carried. And so we will go back to the order of the day, which I think we have 15 minutes left. And we have Mr. Housefather next up for the Liberals to question our witnesses. Thank you.
Mr. Coteau is going to take the time.
Mr. Coteau, for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I guess my first question is to the CEO of Google. How much revenue does Google Canada make per year?
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. I'm the country manager of Google
Country
Canada.
manager, sorry.
Thank you. So we're a global company, and we report our revenues globally.
You could just tell me the amount. That's all. Just how much, if that's okay. I'm sorry, I only have 5 minutes. I don't mean to be disrespectful.
No, thank you, Madam Chair. So we're a global company, and we report our company globally. We don't report out country by country, but we do have an impact of $37 billion on economic impact in Canada. And this is the 1.9 million businesses that work with us.
Thank you so much. Again, I only have a few minutes, so I just want to. So from my research, I know that digital advertising is about 15 billion in the country. I think Google is responsible for about half of that across the country. So it's a relationship that works, well between Canadians and Google Canada. Obviously, there's a service that's provided, and they benefit mutually. And I understand that. But this relationship on Google's side comes with a lot of responsibility. You're the distributor of news, of content. And there's, I believe, blocking news from people intentionally is a breach of this responsibility, this trust that should exist between the citizens of this country and an international organization like yours. Back in the late 1700s, the postal offices in the United States had control of all distribution of news. So they didn't create the news, but they distributed the news like Google does. And there were certain news agencies that were being blocked. And legislation was passed to say that the postal office can't interfere with the distribution of content, mass media like that. And to me, it seems like this is happening. Even if you say it's a 4%, testing piece, it's still happening. You're actually blocking news and content from Canadians. And there's a huge responsibility you have as an organization to allow the news to be freely accessed. So I have a question for you. Who do you report to?
I report to the President of the Americas.
Okay, and from a governance perspective, board-wise, do you report to a chairman or a chairwoman of the board in Canada, or is it directly to the CEO of the Americas?
I do not report to the board.
Okay, so who's this person that you report to? Who's the person that you report to by name?
Sean Downey.
Now, did you have a conversation with Sean about this intentional block of news?
This is a test. News is available.
No, I'm asking you a very simple question. Did you have a conversation with Sean? Just yes or no. Did you have? I would assume if you report to Sean that you would actually say that I'm about to go to testify at Parliament about this issue. And by the way, it's the issue around news being blocked. Did you not have that conversation?
Yeah, Madam Chair, leadership was aware. I think
Did
I've
Sean know?
answered
Did
that.
Sean know?
Sean was aware, yes.
So you had a conversation with him?
We have had a conversation about.
Did you have a conversation with Sean, yes or no, about this issue? About news
Sean-
being blocked?
Sean is aware.
Okay,
Leadership
so-
is aware in the normal course of business in Canada.
So, so your boss, yourself, folks you report to, were all aware that Canadians who rely on news, who rely on good content, that they were intentionally being targeted, that 4% with some algorithm that I'm sure you won't share with us, but they were intentionally being blocked from certain content. What does the term "don't be evil" mean to you as a Google employee?
You know, as a Google employee, and you know, Madam Chair, you're right to point out the importance of our role in Canada.
What does that term mean? Don't be evil. Where does that come from as a Google employee? Do you know the history of that term?
The history of that term was in our founders letter, and we have an impact in Canada of $37 billion.
So,
we work with 1.9 million businesses.
That's not, I wasn't asking for that. So don't be evil came from one of your founders. And the reason they actually put that out there, it was one of the founding model, was because they saw their competitors out there as, and it was a bit of a jab to their competitors because they thought their competitors were exploiting users. Now, I would say that
Please
if
wrap
you,
up,
as an
Mr. Couto, you are running out
you
of
as an
time.
organization, if you actually intentionally block Canadians from getting good news content, it is not aligned with that original model, those guiding principles the company was founded on. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Very much, Mr. Couto. I think we are looking at 10 minutes left. I would like to get a sense. I don't think we have a lot of. How much time do we have left for this room?
Till 3 p.m.
Pardon?
3 p.m.
Till 3 p.m. is a deadline. Now we have 10 minutes. Can I do a quick round with everybody if you all decide to do maybe 3 minutes each? Good? It'll take us maybe till 5 minutes after clerk. They're going to kick us out if we stay 5 minutes later? Okay, good. So we'll go with 3 minutes each. So I'm going to move now to the next person on would be the Conservatives. Do you have anybody who wanted to go here? Kevin, I'm sure you would.
Yeah, I'm going to start it, and then I'm going to share with Ms. Gladue, and then she is going to share with Mr. Zimmer, all of us in 1 minute. So the product testing, when is this going to end in Canada for the 4% that have been affected the last 2 weeks or so, and of course it's the 1.2 million Canadians. So, Ms. Jeremiah, when will the product testing end for this round?
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. Jason is the expert on the tests and can answer that.
The test is scheduled to end on March 16th.
Thank you. I'll switch to Ms. Gladue now.
Thank you, Chair. And my question is a technical one for Mr. Key. And it's in terms of choosing the random Canadians that were involved in this specific test, how were they randomized? Was it IP address, news consumption habits? What was the criteria?
They were identified as Canadian predominantly using IP address. However, other than that, it's completely randomized using basically technological systems to do so.
Very good. Thank you. And I turn it to Mr. Zimmer.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And I just wanted to, since we have Google here, as we know, the smart cities has been coming up recently amongst many concerned citizens. And I think just what Google has been, you've admitted that you're testing limiting news sources to Canadians. It brings the whole smart city question back up again, concerned about being honest with users of your platform. And, again, we don't trust the Prime Minister either. The CRTC is an arm of the government, and the threat to freedom of speech is a concern there as well. I'd say today you have not reassured us in any shape or form that we're okay or Canadians are okay with what you're doing. And again, I just would finish with if you couldn't answer certain questions of members here today, And I think it's a shame that your CEO, Mr. Bakai, wouldn't show up to answer our questions this morning. Thank you.
Mr. Zimmer, and now I go to the Liberals for Anthony Housefather. 3 minutes, Anthony.
Thank you. Ms. Jeremiah, did your company consult with outside counsel before running these tests?
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. I am not aware. I need to take that back to the team and get back to you.
Okay, so in preparation for these hearings, did you have any meeting at all with the 3 other witnesses that were summoned by the committee that didn't appear today?
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. I did not have a meeting with the 3 of them, no.
Okay, because theoretically, they seem to have sent you here in their name, and you obviously do not, since you didn't meet with them, have access to their personal knowledge, which this committee wanted to get. So I think we're going to need to hear from them, and we're going to need to make sure they come. Let me go to another question. Google claimed that Bill C-18 could help spread misinformation and propaganda in Canada. However, in response to legislation, Google ran similar tests in Australia in January 2021. And at that time, it blocked access to fact-based news sources. And in its place, it was shown that it promoted sources of questionable quality, like the Epoch Times, for example, that were known for spreading a certain side of the story. Did you do this when you did these tests in Canada, or did you take steps to make sure that the errors that you acknowledged making in Australia were not made in these tests?
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. I'd like to pass to the expert in this area, which is Jason.
No, I asked you, Ms. Jeremiah. You're the witness we invited today, not him.
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. I do not have the answers to those questions.
Fair.
I'm not able to answer that.
That's fair. I totally understand if you can't answer that question. Ms. Jeremiah, one other question that I have is, I know that the Government of Canada advertises on Google. Do you think, as a result, the Government of Canada should cancel all of its advertising on Google, given the way you handled this test?
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. These are product tests. These are not product decisions. I can't speak to the decision of the government.
Last question, Ms. Jeremiah. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being the worst testing by idea in the world and 10 being the absolute best, what would you rank this test in your estimation now, having these facts in front of you as to how Canadians have reacted? 1 worst, 10 best.
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. I don't have an opinion on a ranking of these tests. I know that these, this is in response to a bill that's going to change the landscape of linking in Canada. These are product tests.
At this point, is Google embarrassed in any way that it conducted these tests? Does it wish it hadn't?
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. It's a normal course of business to do testing. We want a path forward. We want to support a news ecosystem in Canada that's healthy, diverse. We have brought ideas to the table. This is not Australia. This is something very different, and I think Canadians would like us to find a path forward.
Was listened to, and Google is not the Parliament of Canada, and in the end, the Parliament of Canada makes decision on Canadian laws and not Google. Thank you.
Thank you. I now go to the bloc. Martin, 3 minutes.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will get back to the matter of quality journalism. Another reason why I found this very disturbing is to have heard that Google states that this legislation will have a negative effect on the quality of journalism online here in Canada. And I'm still wondering about this, and this is a comment, not a question. What makes Google an expert in such matters? Why would Google be more reliable than anyone else to decide what is good and what is bad journalism? Quality or not quality journalism. Now, your maneuver, your test, let's just call it a maneuver, clearly leads me to believe that you do not give much weight to the quality of journalism or journalism all said and done. Now, you are a business. You have said earlier that you support an open web, free access to information. Here's the simple question. Do you have the impression that these tests support that statement?
Thank you for the question. I'm sorry that there was a bit of a jumble between the English and the French at the same time. Can you repeat the
Est-ce que
question,
de faire des tests comme ceux-là en bloquant la...
Do you think that tests such as this, blocking access to information, is really supportive of our believing that you have a company that is open, supports open and free access to information? It's a simple answer. I'm sure the answer isn't something you want to say openly, but I think it's kind of obvious what the answer is.
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. We want to support Journalism Canada. We want to support open access
c'est bon.
Fine. I just have 3 minutes. Madam Jeremiah, and I'm just getting, this, that, and the other. So the answer, it seems sensible to me, is that if you support open, free access to information and you block access to information, that's a contradiction. So I've got a few seconds left. Let me say, Ms. Jeremiah, this committee has asked you for documents that we have not yet received. The only documents we've received are documents that are available on Google's website, available to the general public. So we expect to receive the documents. My colleagues and I expect to receive the documents we've requested as soon as possible. I have, moreover, asked you to commit to ensure that the people who have been targeted by these tests, be they random or more specific in some way, that the people who have been affected by these tests now and into the future be advised of this to avoid unfortunate situations. I certainly hope you won't expect for some dramatic situation to develop out of this before you do so. And I certainly hope that you take good note of the questions, the comments, and the reactions of Canadians in regard to this very disloyal behavior with regard to a bill which was worked on, studied, and drawn up by the elected officials of this country regarding journalism in this country. I think this is a very sad and sorry situation, and I certainly hope you will respond to our requests.
Mr. Shampoo, and finally, Ms. Matheson for 3 minutes. Irene, I'm sorry. I'm just.
I've been called worse. So I just wanted to reemphasize the difference here in that the fact that C18 is not law, and yet Google Canada has gone forward and, as Mr. Biddle clearly pointed out, has limited specific information to specific people based on this random test. It's been discussed, of course, before by you, Mr. Amai, that Google has quite a significant impact and has quite a significant share in terms of how Canadians find out that information, how they access that news. And so that censorship of the specific news of what people see cannot be minimized. Every single member of this committee has specifically said that. And as Mr. Shampoo had mentioned as well, that it's very important that you take that back and that we see some changes in terms of how that testing is implicated. I also actually never really got a response in terms of this randomization of your so-called testing, which I find it very dangerous to actually try and call it that because it's a minimization of ultimately what you're doing, but could be implicated to someone like a member of parliament. And the limiting of a member of parliament's access to information, as is somewhat seen here today, is actually a violation of their parliamentary privilege. So in terms of that testing, have you considered, and has your legal team considered entirely the implications of what you have done in terms of Canadian safety and in terms of that legal side of limiting information?
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. These are randomized tests, and Jason can speak to the detail.
With respect to your specific question, as Sabrina indicated, these are A/B tests where we're basically trying to ascertain what the product impact is. To be clear, this is actually our attempt to be responsible. This is actually why companies do A/B testing. They want to understand fully what the implications are before they deploy anything at scale. With respect to your specific question, that I am not aware whether or not there was specific undertaking or consideration undertaken with respect to MP parliamentary privileges.
Okay, so in terms of the danger of limiting specific information on safety, on legal precedent, on what have you, do you not recognize the danger of the limiting of that information to specific people and trying to pass it off as a test?
Well, again, the important element to raise here is that the product test simply no longer services links to websites per se. Again, all this information is actually still accessible by any other means. And this is normal course. This is actually generally how technology companies actually will test potential product implications. But certainly the seriousness to which this has been communicated to us is well taken, and we will definitely be taking that message back internally.
Well, that's excellent news, I think, for the end of this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Matheson. And I wanted to thank the witnesses for being here today. And I think you have been asked to produce certain things. And please remember, you need to send them to the clerk of the committee, and they will be distributed to the members so that we can receive the information we asked for. So thank you for coming. And I now call this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.